As part of our Hamburg Mix Design series, we talked to 6 companies about their Hamburg test equipment. Here's our interview with Clint Van Winkle from Troxler Electronic Laboratories.
Hey, Clint. Hey, thanks for joining us on this Monday morning and answering questions about Hamburg machines.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Happy to do it.
No problem. So, Clint, tell me about Troxler.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun little story that back in 1958, Mixter Troxler, as he's known around here, started messing around with some nuclear devices to test the density of soil and then eventually asphalt in his basement. And since then, we've grown to over 80 employees. He passed away in 2000, and since then Billy has taken over, his son, and there from that we've expanded into the asphalt laboratory part of it. It was a nice segue from the density gauges then into the lab, and that's where I come in. I'm the product manager for the laboratory equipment here, and including the wheel tracker. We bought the business from PMW. A guy named Jeff Harris was actually the founder of that business, and then we bought him out, and we've taken it over since. He has his original design is still one of the most popular ones that's out there. We got quite a few of them out there, and we've tried a few tweaks on the original design, but it's the one that Jeff Harris originally came up with that is kind of the basis of what we offer right now. Even obviously we've updated some of the technology stuff and some other things with AASHTO, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later.
Can you tell me about the Troxler version of the Hamburg machine?
We kept a lot of the same things from Jeff Harris's design. Like I said, he did a good job bringing it over here to the United States and getting a big market share there. So it looks a lot the same. We got a big stainless steel frame, some copper piping, which is really meant to last. Jeff Harris was a precision machinist and welder, and it really shows in his design of the machine. Then on top of that, we also have a battery backup, just in case the power goes out. It's a long test, and if something happens to your power, we don't want to waste all that time that was there. So we have included a battery backup. And then I'd like to take a little time to talk about how we actually move the wheels back and forth. So we use a arm and a crank there to move it back and forth, and this is technology that's been used since the industrial era. Very dependable, very repeatable, also very quiet, so that you don't have any additional noises going on in your lab that you don't need. Then we also have a pneumatic lift. It's 158 pounds on each one of those arms that move that run over the sample, and so it's really heavy. But with a pneumatic lift, one button, and the arms are raised for you. Our measurement system is a little bit different as well. We use an encoder plate, which as it goes back and forth, a laser gets triggered and it tells it exactly where it needs to take those 11 measurements on the sample. And then we also use a bailiff LVDT to measure the actual height on this. And this is some technology that we use in some other products that we really like. It's extremely durable. There's no touching involved. It uses a magnet. So no dust and dirt will affect it, and it's extremely accurate to thousandths of a millimeter. So we really like that. Then we have a dual heating circulation system that keeps the water warm or at the correct temperature and covering the sample. And then we just use straight weights So there's no variance in the weights unless you're move off of the planet Earth. That gravity is going to be the exact same, 158 pounds down on your sample. So we like the way it's designed and works for us.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have made some improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Not improvements, maybe some, you've evolved the machine to use some best available technology.
Yep, that's a good way of putting it. We have evolved.
So Clint, you talked about the pneumatic lift of the 60-pound dead weight that you use for applying the load on the Hamburg test. What other safety systems do you have with your Hamburg machine?
So the other primary function for safety or feature for safety is a light curtain that we have that goes around the arms as they're moving. And this is just like something out of a Bond video where you got some invisible lasers bouncing off a couple mirrors and then being read on the other end, so that anytime those lasers get broke, that machine's going to stop and those arms are going to come up, so that you don't ruin your sample and you don't ruin your hand either when those if you get it in there while it's running.
Got it. All right. So Clint, does your Hamburg machine meet the current standards of AASHTO T324, and are there any other standards we should talk about?
Yeah, so we have specifically targeted our Hamburg machine for AASHTO T324. So we're not compliant with the air heating versions, but we are for AASHTO T324. And as you know, that specification changed here recently, and we had to evolve, and that's where some of those features that I mentioned before came from. Specifically, the way we measure it now, going to the bailiff LVDT as opposed to the old plunger style that they broke off a lot too. So it was not only did we improve the accuracy of our readings, we also improved the durability. One of the other things that we had to do for AASHTO T324 was to vary our motion. So it was the new specification is very strict on the motion, that it goes back and forth in a perfectly sinusoidal motion. In other words, that it doesn't accelerate and decelerate. It's got the same motion going forward and back. And with the slider and not a slider and crank, but an arm and crank mechanism that we use, that is inherently not sinusoidal. So we have to vary the speed of our motor so that the motion of our arms and the carriage going back and forth is perfectly sinusoidal. So yeah, we did a lot of work to get our wheel tracker to AASHTO 324, and then we're also offering a upgrade to those that have machines already out in the field that don't meet AASHTO T324. So if you got an older PMW, we can retrofit that to be compliant with AASHTO T324.
So Clint, if I were to purchase a Troxler Hamburg machine, what does Troxler recommend for calibration and maintenance activities?
AASHTO requires calibration every year, and so we've timed that along with doing some service things as well, just checking over the equipment, greasing up any joint that needs it, and so that all gets done there right when the calibration. Now the calibration is a pretty in-depth process now with the changes to T324, with the motion that I talked about earlier, and then actually measuring the height dynamically as well has made it a little trickier. And so just for the quality and consistency of our machines, we'll come in there and we'll do that. And we have offices all over the country, so we can help everybody out with their calibration and annual maintenance.
In terms of service and support, you guys offer the annual maintenance that would be required, the minimum for AASHTO plus others. So it sounds like you have locations all throughout the U.S.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. What is So Clint, if I have a Troxler, I'm going to purchase a Troxler Hamburg machine. What do I need to know about installing the device in my laboratory?
So we have some requirements. Electrical is probably the first one that we like to talk about. We need at least 208 volts, 50 hertz, and 40 amps on a three-phase system or electrical. That's what our Hamburg is. It's always ran on, and so we've kept that the same. And then it's a large machine. It's 64 inches by 55 inches is the footprint. And so need some room to have one of those in there. Just the water is just drinking water. And then a drain. We need something that is lower than 14 inches from the floor, right? Just because we use some gravity to help our pump everything out, and so when that gets too high, it takes too long. And then also we have that pneumatic arm lift that go for the weights, and so we do require 90 psi of air to lift that up. Tank can be pretty small. We only use it for a few seconds, so we get away with having a pretty small air tank as long as it's got that 90 psi.
Yeah. So in your opinion, what's next for the Hamburg wheel tracking tests and other rutting index tests?
So I think the Hamburg will continue to be popular in verifying mixed designs. I think it's pretty important for that. There's also the production style test. So there's the rapid rut test that is out there. It's getting a lot of attention. So I see there being a little bit of a combination of the two, with maybe some correlation between results of the two, the rapid rut test and then the Hamburg, so that it can be used during production. If this balanced mixed design type of mixed design takes off the way that a lot of people think it will, I think it will continue to be important as we go forward.
Thank you to Clint for representing Troxler in our Hamburg machine videos. If you'd like to learn more about Troxler and their equipment, visit their website linked below. To learn more about LASTRADA, the world's leading construction materials testing software, visit our contact page to speak with one of our engineers.